Well, hello, back to a new video. My name is Charles Richard, and I've got something that's a little sort of vintage, but yet not so vintage, at least not in my eyes. I'm talking about a camera that was built 23 years ago, actually 22 to be more exact. It's going to be 23 now in September that this camera actually came out. And I'm talking about the Sony CyberShot that you can see here. F828, that's correct. It is the Sony CyberShot F828, which was actually one of the most innovative cameras that Sony has ever come out. What makes it so innovative? Well, for one, it has what is called a CCD sensor, but it is not a 3 CCD sensor. It is a 4 CCD sensor, which uses the red, blue, green, and a new color which they call emerald. Now, does it make a big difference in your photos? In my opinion, yes. It makes a big difference, particularly and most of all when you are looking and when you are shooting pictures or portraits of people, and you can see the difference in the skin tones. And this is what this particular sensor is well known for and used for. But this camera does a lot more than just that. It is not just a 4 CCD sensor, it is also an 8 megapixel sensor. Now, we're gonna say, well, 8 megapixel sensor, we have 100 megapixel sensors now. But we're talking about something that is CCD, for one. For two, remember that the Sony, the A7S III, which is very popular, is a 12 megapixel sensor, and it is still rated as the best camera for videography under low light. So does that actually help the camera? Yes, in many ways it does. Now, actually, with all of this that is actually carrying with the CCD sensor, it also brings a very powerful lens. It is a what we call a bridge camera. That means that the lens is not removable, but it has a lens that is 28 to 200 millimeters, and it goes from 2.0 to 2.8 f-stop. That's correct, 2.0 to 2.8. Look how small the lens is. Usually lenses of that particular quality are huge. This is a very compact camera, very compact for what it actually can do. Now, it doesn't stop there. All right, as a matter of fact, we're just getting started. On top of that, it has the capability of doing, see where it says here, night shot? It has the capability of doing infrared. That's correct, infrared. What does that mean? That means that it can shoot under low lights with no light at all. Really good. I'm going to show you all these things that the camera can do. And I'm not talking about just being able to do photos. It's also able to do video at that resolution. Now, the video is not something spectacular to talk about because it doesn't do 4K, it doesn't do HD, it doesn't even do 720. The video is only a 640 by 480. But it is very trendy because when you see that video that used to be used back in a 4:3 format, because the 640 by 480 is a 4:3 format, you can see the old nostalgic vibe that is becoming very popular in today's trend, right? Which a lot of people are actually using. This camera has it. It comes also with a built-in flash, which I can show you right here in a minute. And let me take this flash out. This is an external flash. It has an external and a built-in flash, which you can see right here. So it does all of that. It can do macro very well, okay? It's incredible when it does macro. Now, Me particularly, I use an external flash, which it has the capability, if you can see on the top over here, you bring the camera over here so you can see the top over here on the top. You can see on the top that it has its hot shoe. Well, that hot shoe, you can mount an external flash, which is what I like to do, so that I get a little bit more power on the flash itself, so that I can do macro, because I'm using this to do macro, infrared macro. Now, that's something new. All right, now let me help you out with something more. Infrared is something that you see on some of the cameras that are CMOS in today's age, but a CCD infrared is something that is unheard of. All right, it's unheard of, and the ones that you can find are extremely expensive. Now, is CCD better than CMOS? Well, it's different. All right, it is different. I may leave it at that, because you're gonna have a lot of opinions both ways. Personally, I prefer CCD because it brings more what we call true to life. In other words, the greens that the camera can produce are actually the greens that my eyes and your eyes can see. They're not a little bit on the yellowish tone, a little bit on the bluish tone. They are actually more true to what you actually can see, and the CCD can produce that, where the CMOS has issues here and there depending on the sensor that is being used on the camera. So with that said, let me show you some of the pictures that this camera can take. Well, let me know what you think about those photos in the comments below. But there's a lot more about this camera than just those photos. Let me show you a few things that was very innovative back in the time that the camera actually came out, which was 2003. This camera, for one, does not have an articulating screen, nor a flip-up screen. Instead, it has a body that is attached to a lens that actually rotates, and it rotates like this. You can rotate it up or you can rotate it down. All right, now that was very innovative, and I think it was very new to a concept that personally I prefer and I like, because you don't have that flimsy screen that feels sometimes like it's going to break because it's so thin and delicate. And that allowed this camera to do that. Furthermore, the camera doesn't use SSD cards. This camera uses a technology called flash card. Okay, and that is what it looks like. Now, this happens to be 2 gigs, but you can put a 16 gig, 32 gig, 128. You can get these all day long through Amazon or your local camera store, but it uses the compact flash discs, which are, I think, it's got its advantages. It has a lot of advantages, as a matter of fact. And it also uses what is called the Sony Pro Stick. Now, the Sony Pro Stick is limited, so what guys are doing now to sort of go beyond that boundary of the Pro Stick is they're using the Pro Stick adapter and inserting a micro SD card inside the adapter, which now gives you the ability to use up to 1 terabyte of micro SD. Now, furthermore than that, all right, it has a lot of things, all right, besides those things that I just told you about. It has a screen in the back, which is fixed. It is a very small screen, but that is enough to be able to tell what it is that you're filming. Now, back then, there was no such thing as a sensor, which an eye sensor that is, that would allow you to switch between the finder and the LCD screen. Instead, they had a what is called a switch, which I think works a lot better in many occasions. And if you want to use the finder, you would just switch it here, turn that off, and it brings the finder to the to have the ability to be able to use, right? So that is one great advantage that this switch has. Furthermore, it has the capability of doing, guess what? Macro. Okay, you can see right here that the camera has that capability to do macro. Why is that so important? Because macro under the CCD sensor is incredible. I think it is incredible. And even more so, macro under the CCD under infrared is almost like, wow, that's something that no other camera can do. And I'm going to show you some of those pictures when we come back. And finally, one last thing. Video, it doesn't have the biggest or the greatest specs for video, but it has something that is very nostalgic. And nostalgic has become the new trend of 2025. What is nostalgic? Well, this camera does not do 4K. It does not do HD. It does not even do 720. This camera does 640 by 480 in a 4:3 format using the whole sensor, which nowadays we call open gate. This uses the whole sensor on a 4:3, 640 by 480, and it is, well, let me put it this way. It is very vintagey, nostalgic, a look that is only can come from a sensor of that era, and it looks even more true and more vintage is the word, I think, and unique because of the CCD and the ability that it has to not only use that aspect ratio for CCD, but also for the infrared. That makes it very unique, very awesome. I like it. It is a different look. It is something that only this camera, only this model can do. No other camera can do that. And this is where Sony really had the innovative sense, which they, in my opinion, I think they've lost it a lot. But this is where they actually were doing things that were very different than everybody else and very innovative. Tell me what you think about this in the comments. And yes, see you on the next video. Bye-bye.